It's Father's Day, and today on Comm Talk, we're going to talk about some of our favorite fathers, or at least some fathers that stand out to us in Geekdom.
Glix, what is going on?
We are receiving a signal from a new area on the planet Geekery.
All right, let's see what the planet has for us today.
Opening comms in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, devoted geeks, and welcome to Comm Talk, the podcast extension of Geek Devotions, a show from devoted geeks who are devoted to letting you know that you're loved. I'm Dallas. I'm so glad you hit the play button today on this podcast. We listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you found us. Hey, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited because I feel like it's been a hot minute since we had just a normal Comm Talk with Celeste and I. Speaking of which, Celeste, hello.
Hello.
How are you, my dear?
I'm well.
Your hair is looking nice and dark red today.
I'm hoping it fades a little bit because this is not my favorite shade for it to be.
Okay.
But I like it in like a few days when it's faded just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Comm Talk, and Celeste and I are talking about Father's Day. It's been a great several weeks for us here at Comm Talk. We've had episodes in the past. We had a really great episode last week with John of Primitive Rhythm Machine, the final PRM podcast, I'm afraid. But it was a great one to go out off where he actually interviewed a guy named Victor, who is the former lead guitarist of a band called Pentagram and is now a Christian. He plays for Pentagram every so often to help them out, but he's had a really great influence in their lives. And before that, Branson had a great interview with some guys who created a really interesting comic book series called Chronicles of Faith. And that was the Beach Views and Reviews. And but we've not had an old school Comm Talk.
Nope.
With just you and I.
We also started a new podcast about books.
Yeah, we have started that one. It's called We Read Allegedly, and that's on an entirely different RSS feed. Of course, we also had The Bottom Shelf. Again,
all the things.
Links in the description down below. So, Celeste.
Yes.
It's Father's Day.
It is.
And we have a topic that we're going to talk about.
We do.
Some of our favorite dads in geekdom. Now, we're going to start off this off. I just want to say this real quick. Thank you. Happy Father's Day to all the men out there who are just doing a bang-up job of being a father like it's your biological kids. Maybe they're not your biological kids. Maybe you're a stepdad and adopted dad. Maybe you're just a dude who's stepping in to help out some people. We want to say thank you so much to all you men out there.
Yeah.
Happy Father's Day to your dad.
Yeah, we will. When this airs, we will be heading to my dad's house to play board games with him and eat pizza, two of his favorite things.
True story. And I want to say Happy Father's Day to all the men in my life who have been stood in the gap for me, and to my own dad, Mr. Gilbert Mora. I appreciate all you guys and what you mean to me.
If he ever listens to this.
I doubt he does.
I doubt he does too, but doesn't hurt to throw it out there.
So, Celeste, we're talking about our favorite dads in geekdom. And we want to hear from the audience. Hey, what's your favorite dads in geekdom? But we're going to give just three guys who stand out to us individually.
Yeah.
So, who is your first dad in geekdom, babe?
My first dad that comes to mind, the one that comes immediately to mind because of what we've been watching recently, is Isshin Kurosaki.
Oh.
Which, for those of you who don't know, that is Ichigo Kurosaki's dad from Bleach.
Yeah.
Now, just a fair warning, we have not finished Bleach.
No.
We are in episode 148.
Right.
Maybe 149. So we don't know if he continues to be a good dad, but he legitimately cares about his kids. He cares about Ichigo. He cares about his daughters. He cares about Rukia.
Yeah.
And legitimately at one point he goes, "You're just my daughter now, Rukia." And Rukia's like, "What?"
She's like, "Get off me."
He legitimately cares about these kids, and he's a good to them. Now, I personally don't think that he should randomly be sneak attacking Ichigo.
I think he's preparing Ichigo. That's just training.
Yeah, well, considering that we have the things we've learned about Isshin, yeah, I think you're right. But when I first was watching it, I didn't know these things. And
right.
So I was like, what the heck is he doing?
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. I like him. He's funny.
I want to know more about him. And I'm hoping we get more in the next 150 episodes.
Yes. All right, so my first dad is actually not a dad. In fact, we're going through the list, and actually, we were talking about this earlier. I feel bad because most of the guys that stand out to me aren't biological fathers of the people we're talking about. But the first one is from Dragon Ball Z, Piccolo.
Piccolo.
Now, for those who don't know, Piccolo is a Namekian. He's an alien, but he steps into the role of as a father figure to Gohan, who's his dad is Goku. Goku's still around. He's there now.
Well, technically, he died.
But he got better.
He got better.
He got better from death, but he spent I forget how long it was. I think it's 6 months of training with Gohan, teaching him, training him. Really became a mentor and a father figure for Gohan to the point where later, as a young man, Gohan, even his uniform that he wore was in honor of Piccolo and his place in his life. And I love that story arc so much because, again, his dad's there. Yeah. And it's not a bad thing. I mean, Goku is just kind of, he had to be away because he was dead. He was training. But there are so many kids out there that I see that, dad's present. Yes, is a good dad, a solid dad. But sometimes for life situations, dad can't be there for one reason or another. And these men are stepping in and they have to be a father figure at times. And I appreciate the role that Piccolo played in Gohan's life.
Right. Well, and I mean, there's even a lot to say about the fact that even if your dad is the most amazing dad in the world, it's good to have the influence of others.
Yeah, totally.
I absolutely love my dad. He is a fantastic dad. He didn't come onto the scene until I was much older, but he's still a fantastic dad. But I have friends' dads who I model things that I do after because they were there.
Yeah, totally.
And they were willing to, hey, this is my kid's friend. Let me also parent them. Yeah, I was thinking of Mark specifically.
Yeah.
So, they didn't have to do that. They could have just treated me like some random kid
who's this kid?
Who are you? But legitimately, even if they have a good dad, they can still benefit from your influence.
Totally. So who's your second one?
My second one is Lloyd Forger.
Lloyd Forger.
Because we've been binging Spy Family. Now, there are some things in this that we need to point out. The fact of that he has adopted this child for a mission. But he legitimately cares about Anya.
Yeah.
And even though it's partially for the mission, he legitimately works and strives and worries about his family.
Totally. Okay, so the disclaimer about Lloyd is there.
Yeah.
But why Lloyd?
He's just a really good dad. He even goes the lengths of going, maybe I should read this manga to help my child understand math.
Right.
And again, his motivations are not completely there, but he's striving to be a good dad, even if his initial motivation is for the mission, not for the family.
Yeah.
But I mean, who's to say that, a good dad's mission isn't that his family has a good dad?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, just because world peace doesn't rest on it doesn't mean that it's not a valid thing.
Right, totally. So, Lloyd is definitely he's an interesting character because he's a father who has chosen this life for ulterior reasons. But you see him genuinely falling in love with Anya and Yor, which is his mission wife. So we're rooting for this family, guys. If you're not watching Spy Family, you're missing out.
I just realized that all of my dads are anime dads.
Yeah.
And it's just because we're coming off the heels of Anime April. I got Crunchyroll for my birthday. We've been doing so much anime recently.
We have. Well, let me break the cycle with a couple comic book dads.
Okay.
My number 2 dad is Cable.
Nice.
Which he is legitimately a dad. He has a son named Tyler, and there's a really interesting story arc that takes place in the early issues of Cable Volume 1. Called Fathers and Sons, where he's kind of navigating the family dynamic of his own dad, which is Cyclops, and then his own son, and just kind of navigating all this other stuff and dealing with the sins of the father that's being passed down to the son and everything like that. But where he really strives for me is years later during the Mutant Messiah story arc, where there is a young girl who is born, and this is on the heels of the House of M, where nobody is being born mutant. Like the mutant genes just disappeared, and this one little girl is born a mutant, and he is on a mission to protect her.
Yeah.
And we're talking, he goes to great lengths to protect this little girl. He does not know this little girl from Adam, but he knows that she needs protection. And so he does. I mean, he is going after it, literally time jumping to protect this baby girl and to raise her as his own. And I just love that story arc so much. And I appreciate the links of it. And then, again, just really, I appreciate seeing other guys who step in, that they're going to great lengths to protect somebody just because they need it. Yeah. They just see that somebody's defenseless, like, look, you need help. And there's a lot of kids out there who are like that, and they need men to step up and do that. To be like you just need help.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So that was my number 2. So what's your number 3?
My number 3 is not a dad, but he acts in a father figure role. Now, disclaimer, do not agree with everything he does because he kind of fits into a certain stereotype in anime. But it's Shigure from Fruits Basket.
Okay.
He is the year of the dog, and he's much older than the main characters of the show. And he takes in Toru and the other 2 young men, Kyo and, I forgot his name.
It's an interesting name.
Kyo?
No, I don't know his name. I forgot his name.
Oh, I
What
see.
kind of parent is that? We're talking about good fathers.
His family was all kinds of jacked up, but it's these children, and there's the stigma against the members of the Zodiac in the show, to the point of where most of their parents have pushed them away. So he kind of steps in for these young men and Toru, and kind of guides them to adulthood, to do what they end up doing in the show. And it's a good thing. Now he's kind of like Roshi a little bit. That's the best way I can think to say it.
I understand that perfectly.
Without saying it outright. So every once in a while you're like, gross.
Right.
What are you doing? But he legitimately cares about these kids.
Yeah.
He legitimately cares about what happens to them.
Right.
And he just does a really good job of taking care of them, and also correcting some mindsets. Toru had a mindset because both her mother and her father had passed away. And she had this mindset of she didn't want to be a burden.
Right.
So she wanted to work. And so she had several jobs. She ended up moving out of her grandfather's house because they didn't have room for her. And that's how she ended up moving in with them, long story short. But
Right.
So at one point he goes, "You can rest, Toru." And she's like, "Oh, I don't want to be a burden." And he goes, "It's okay to not cook every meal and not clean our house and then also work your job.
Wow.
Like, there's other people here. You can go study, go rest, go be a kid."
Right.
And so he just does a really good job of taking care of those kids.
Man. So good. So good. All right. So my number 3, we're going to share after this quick commercial break. And when we come back, I will share my number 3, and we'll give our final closing thoughts for Father's Day and saying thank you to some amazing people out there.
This podcast is a proud member of Culture Box. Whether you enjoy geeky reviews, comedy, or original fiction, you can open up the Culture Box and find something excellent for your soul. Point your web browser to culturebox.media.
All right, so what we like to do here on the Retro Rewind podcast is at the end of our like section, we do our classic makers, the things that we loved most about the movies we cover. I'll start us off, then we'll go to Paul. The thing I loved most about The Princess Bride was probably the dueling sword scene between Inigo and Dread Pirate Roberts, Wesley. That's just such a great sword fight scene. I love that they use the actual fencing like terminology and techniques. And the only little quibble I have is when Wesley does his spinning, his
the best sword fight scene ever.
Yes, but when Wesley does his gymnastics high bar routine and lands, you can see the pillow bag or the mat puff up with the dust. You see the outline of it, so it's not perfect. But that is my favorite part about Princess Bride. How about you, Paul?
My favorite thing about The Princess Bride is the movie The Princess Bride. I just love that it exists. I love the story. I love the characters. I love the cast. I love the interaction. It's just it's one of my top favorite films of all time. So I like the whole movie.
Paul, how can that be your top movie when, as good as that sword fight is between Wesley and Inigo, I feel like the one between Inigo and the Six Finger Man should be even more epic, and it's sort of like isn't as good.
It's not better. No, it will be less because Wesley's better, so therefore that fight would be better.
All right, fine. You know what? All right, well, I guess, but now we do have to talk about. Oh, darn it! I always do this. How come I cannot remember one more thing I liked? Comm Talk by Geek Devotions. You're listening to it right now.
And we're back. We hope you guys go check them out. They are some fellow friends of ours who are part of the Culture Box Network, which is a network that Celeste and I are part of. Culture Box, unpacking truth through story, comedy, and geekery. If you want more information about Culture Box, visit culturebox.media. So, my number 3 dad that I like in Geekdom is one that nobody is surprised about. And I thought about other dads. I thought about Grandpa from Tenchi Muyo and several other people. But my number 1 dad, the number 3 on the list for me today, is Batman. Just plain and simple, Batman.
Just want to throw this disclaimer out there. Mine were not necessarily numbered.
Yeah.
I just was throwing them out.
I got that. But
okay, but you're number 1 dad.
My number 1 is Batman. And for those who want to know more, season 1 of Geek Devotions, and I'll put a link to the video in the description of this podcast.
Oh, don't do it.
I need to because we did an episode called Parenting Like Batman, and it was talking about spiritual parenthood. And that's what Batman is. He's a spiritual father to so many people in the game or in the books, from Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Damien, his own flesh and blood. I mean, the whole dynamic, the way he deals with it. Now, he's not perfect, and he's a butthole at times. Depending on who's writing it, it's really terrifying what takes place. But if you pan back and just look at the surface stuff, there's a lot of great principles that come out. And in fact, I have on my desk, and those of you guys who watch our streams, you guys will see in the background a statue called Dark Knight Strikes Again. And it's a statue of Batman from the comic Dark Knight Strikes Again with Catwoman, which was not the original Catwoman, but this is a young lady who in the first portion of that story took on the role of Robin, and now she's Catwoman. And I can go for hours talking about the subject, but I really appreciate the role that he plays. And again, I explain it a lot better in the video, and I'll post that up for you guys. But Batman is another dad in Geekdom that I really appreciate and that I really, really enjoy.
It's kind of interesting because your dad, I mean, your mom as well, but your dad is who took you to see your first Batman movie.
It's true.
So it makes sense that would be what you strongly associate.
I hadn't thought about it that way. So, but it's true. My dad, for my 5th birthday, took me to go see Batman in 1989. To see Batman in 1989 in theaters.
In 1989, took you to see Batman 1989
in theaters. I love it so much. But there's just a lot of things about Batman that I really love and appreciate. So that's our kind of 3 and 3 that we came up with. Want to hear from you guys. Celeste, anything else you want to say for this Father's Day edition of Comm Talk?
Happy Happy Father's Day. I almost said happy birthday. Happy Father's Day to all the dads.
Yeah.
Just whether you're a dad or not. Like, you can be, and we've said this before all around Mother's Day, but you can be a dad and not have kids.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to have fathered a child to be a dad. And just because you've fathered a child does not make you a dad.
Yeah, that's true.
There is a level of being involved.
Yeah, totally.
And speaking into a child's life. So if you were just a friend of somebody who needs a father figure, even if it's an extra father figure and their dad's great, thank you.
Yeah, totally. And for those of you who maybe Father's Day, you're struggling with it because maybe you didn't have, your biological father wasn't there.
Yeah.
First off, we want to let you know that we love you and care about you. And we really want to encourage you to lean into the Heavenly Father.
Yeah.
God. He's, we have the vocabulary of father, but if you have a distorted view of a dad, it distorts your view of God. And I really want to encourage you to lean into the Word and discover what that looks like, what that really means to be a true father. But
even if you have a dad and he was great, or you have a dad and he wasn't great, dads are humans.
Yeah, exactly.
And God's not. God
Exactly.
is not. So I would encourage you to lean in and figure out what God as a dad is.
Yeah.
Because while humans imitate him, we don't always do the best job.
Exactly. But I want to encourage you guys, reach out to your fathers, to your father figures and to your fathers. And just let them know you appreciate them, that you care about them, you appreciate what they poured into you. And I also want to encourage you in this. If you have the ability to contact your biological father, but it's not been a good relationship, and you're questioning how do you do Father's Day with a dad who hasn't been great, I want to encourage you in this. There are aspects about your dad that you don't like, and that you're perfectly validated in disliking these aspects. But understand this: there is DNA that's been passed down to you that's good.
Yeah.
That you enjoy, that you like. You may have a sense of humor that comes from your dad. You may have a work ethic that comes from your dad. There are things been passed down to you that come from them. If nothing else, say, hey, thank you for imparting this into me. It'll throw them off, I promise you.
Oh yeah.
But don't take today and just be angry. Try to avoid that. I understand why you might want to, some people. But be thankful for who you have in your life. Reach out to those people and say, hey, thank you for imparting to me. Again, I have a lot of spiritual fathers.
Yeah.
But, and I say happy Father's Day to them. They're not my dad. And I understand that. I honor him who my dad is. And so to my dad, Mr. Gilbert E. Mora, hey, happy Father's Day. Thank you for your sense of humor you've given to me, for the work ethic you've given to me, and for the many, many laughs.
Oh, yes.
He's given. There are stories he's told me I can't say
on this podcast,
but they're hysterical. And then to all the men in my life, real quick off the top of my list, Matt Marino, Scott Etheridge. There's two guys right off the top of my head, right there in front of me, because I see them all the time. Hey, thank you guys. And to all the other men who have stood in the gap for me, thank you for being fathers.
Okay, well, looks like we are done. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Comm Talk today. If you have loved this episode, head on over to Apple Podcasts to subscribe, rate, leave a review. It's very much appreciated. So until next time, stay devoted.
Peace and love.